Making the headlines tonight. A draft law on the protection of plants and photosanitary has been fully approved by the Council of Ministers Cabinet. The president of the Japan-Cambodia Association has promised to take up Cambodia's proposal to establish a free trade agreement between Cambodia and Japan. Countries and investors are split on new rules proposed by the European Commission that label some investments in gas and nuclear power plants as sustainable. Bartenders and waitstaff wear full hazmat suits while serving customers at a ski resort in Zhangjiakou. And a French brewery uses algae to produce an out-of-the-ordinary blue-colored beer. This is the Daily Roundup on EAC News Channel. A very good evening to you. I'm Darshana Gochan. A draft law on the protection of plants and photosanitary was fully approved by the Cabinet this Friday morning. This law was created to protect Cambodian agricultural interests from losses caused by harmful components of plant resources and crop products. According to Royal Government spokesman Pai Sipan, the draft law was approved at a cabinet meeting chaired by Prime Minister Hun Sen. He added that the enactment of the law will help improve the quality of agricultural products, establish agricultural exports, and ensure sustainable development in the context of highly competitive global economic integration. He continued that the law will protect the interests of farmers through the management of plant protection and the implementation of photosanitary measures to reduce losses that may be caused by the harmful composition of plant resources and crop products in the agricultural production system. He said it will also support policies and strategies to promote agricultural production, provide clear protections for the protection of plant resources, manage plant health, improve productivity, quality, and safety of agricultural products, make them environmentally friendly and sustainable, and also ban the importation of all types of agricultural products that contain harmful components. He said in particular this is to prevent the importation or outbreak of invasive and harmful components that cause catastrophic damage to agricultural crops, biodiversity, and the environment in the Kingdom of Cambodia. He explained that the outbreak of pests such as golden snails on coconuts, silver leaf blight on oranges, roses, cassava, yellow leaf blight on cassava, and new species of worms on corn have really affected agricultural production and the national economy during the pandemic. The spokesman also said the law will give confidence to trading partners and full strength to open up Cambodia's agricultural export markets with the world's major markets, especially after reaching a free trade agreement with bilateral and multilateral frameworks to facilitate the export, import, and transportation of plant goods and plant products. Following the approval of the draft law by the Council of Ministers, it will be sent to the National Assembly next week. Currently, Cambodia has established a free trade agreement with China and Korea, in addition to the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, which entered into force on 1 January 2022. The Royal Government of Cambodia has announced its commitment to prevent deaths due to COVID-19 by accelerating the vaccination of COVID-19 vaccines to all citizens. EAC News reporter Chamrong Ritisit has more.
In a press release issued by the plenary sessions of the Councils of Ministers on Friday, 4 February, Prime Minister stated in the meeting that the Ministries of Health, relevant ministries, and institutions must continue to accelerate the third dose of vaccinations of all people, continue to promote the fourth dose of vaccination campaign for civil servants, and call on all citizens who have not been vaccinated to come and receive the vaccine quickly at the designated site to increase immunity in the community. The Royal Government has also seen progress of economic recovery, which has led to an increase in tax revenue and the resumption of economic activities, which is a good development for the Kingdom of Cambodia to guarantee past expenditures. It has also far been 31 days that no deaths because of COVID-19 have been reported in the Kingdom of Cambodia. Chamrong Ritisit, EAC News.
The president of the Japan-Cambodia Association and former Japanese ambassador to Cambodia, Takahashi Fumiaki, promised to take up Cambodia's proposal to establish a free trade agreement between Cambodia and Japan, and to submit the proposal to the government of Japan for consideration of expanding trade and investment to Cambodia. EAC News reporter Straipor Kong has more.
The desire for free trade between Cambodia and Japan was stated by the Minister of Commerce Pan Sosa during a working meeting with the Japan-Cambodia Associate President on Thursday. The talks were aimed at strengthening cooperation between the two countries and promoting a better business environment. During the meeting, Minister Pan Sosa highlighted some instances of past cooperation that has improved trade and investment between Cambodia and Japan. The minister emphasized that with this strategic partnership and cooperation, Japan has made significant contribution to Cambodia's economic development through the rehabilitation of infrastructure, the provision of human resource development programs, and the strengthening of economic relations in the field of tourism, trade, and investment in many other sectors. The Minister of Commerce added that Japanese investors have come to Cambodia and brought a flow of technology, knowledge, and skill through foreign direct investment (FDI) and official development assistance (ODA). He further mentioned how the ASEAN-Japanese Comprehensive Economic Partnership (HACEP) has accelerated the response to economic development between Cambodia and Japan through the provision of free trade, services, and investment. Some of the results highlighted by Minister Pan Sosa during the meeting included the import of Cambodian products to Japan, reaching about $1.5 billion in August 2021. According to the General Department of Customs and Excise, and also underlying export potential such as garment and furniture, as well as footwear, textile, and other consumer goods. The minister also added that Cambodia imports 400 to 500 tons of raw steel from Japan per year to produce handicraft products for export to major markets including Thailand, Vietnam, China, and Japan. He continued that the Japanese market will become Cambodia's largest import market for steel products by 2020, amounting to $1.5 million. The minister called on Japanese businessmen, entrepreneurs, and investors to consider Cambodia as a business partner and investment destination, as the royal government of Cambodia has ensured stability, peace, and politics, as well as a favorable investment and business environment for Japanese investors. In response, the president of Cambodia Japanese Association expressed his appreciation for the royal government of Cambodia's effort to ensure peace and social stability, especially the success of the national COVID-19 vaccination campaign. In addition to promising to submit a free trade proposal to the government of Japan, he also expressed support for the development of Japanese investment in steel value chains in target provinces, as well as a continued commitment to have Japanese investors support development in Cambodia. Minister Pan Sosa noted that this working meeting acts as a step toward building a roadmap for future cooperation between Cambodia and Japan, and will be a target indicator for the Ministry of Commerce and Cambodia-Japan Association to achieve the goal of boosting the production and export of small and medium enterprises and producers when a bilateral free trade agreement is established between the two countries. Sri Pokong, EAC News.
Tourism in Cambodia continues to grow following the full reopening of the country and the lifting of restrictions thanks to the success of the national vaccination campaign. Over the 3 days of the Lunar New Year, close to 950,000 domestic and international tourists were reported to have traveled across Cambodia. EAC News reporter Anthony Ellis has more.
A total of 947,497 domestic and international tourists, including 931,308 nationals and 16,189 domestic foreigners travelled in Cambodia during the Lunar New Year. Ministry of Tourism spokesman Top Sapir said in the last 3 days of the Lunar New Year, between the 1st and 3rd of February 2022, Cambodia received nearly 1 million domestic tourists, which is an increase of 6.15% compared to 2021. He added that Phnom Penh was a designation that received the most tourists, following from Battambang, Siem Reap and other coastal provinces such as Sihanoukville, Kep and Kampot. According to a report from the Ministry of Tourism, during the 3 days of the Lunar New Year, Phnom Penh received close to 250,000 visitors, Battambang more than 190,000 visitors, Sihanoukville close to 100,000, Kampot around 67,000, Siem Reap close to 60,000, Kep around 55,000, and Kandal roughly 52,000 people. Anthony Ellis, EAC News.
The Ministry of Water Resources and Meteorology has called on people to save water, especially in remote rural areas, because the forecast in 2022 shows that the amount of rainfall will likely not be enough to meet water demands. The first weather forecast for the 2021-2022 dry season and the beginning of the 2022 rainy season states that the 2022 rainy season in the lowlands and the coastal areas may begin in the first week of May and in the highlands in the second week of May. According to the Ministry of Water Resources, although there may be heavy rainfall in the early rainy season, the amount of forecasted rainfall will likely not be able to meet the immediate needs. Therefore, the ministry urges people to continue to conserve and use water sparingly, especially in remote rural areas far from water resources. The Ministry of Health has announced the discovery of a positive COVID-19 case in a pregnant former Naga World employee who had been engaging in the demonstration in front of the Australian Embassy. The ministry has now given protesters 3 days to provide their samples for COVID-19 testing, with the threat of legal action. EAC News reporter Sraipor Kong has more.
In a press release issued on Friday, the Ministry of Health stated that a female protester went for a prenatal checkup on 28 January 2022 and was found to be positive for COVID-19. The woman's sample was taken to be tested at the Institut Pasteur du Cambodge, where it was confirmed to be the Omicron variant. To prevent the spread of this new variant, the ministry is requiring all protesters to go and get tested and provide their sample at designated location in Koh Pek, otherwise known as Diamond Island, within 3 days' notice. The Ministry of Health has warned that those individuals who do not implement health and administrative measures shall be punished in accordance with the law or measure to prevent the spread of COVID-19 and other serious and dangerous infectious disease in force. Article 10 of the Law on Measures to Prevent the Spread of COVID-19 and Other Deadly and Infectious Diseases stated a fine of 1 million to 5 million riel will be imposed on those who do not comply with state measures, a 6-month to 3-year-long prison sentence, as well as a fine of 2 to 10 million riel if this non-compliance causes transmission of COVID-19 to others, and a 2 to 5-year prison sentence, plus a fine of 5 to 20 million riel if this action causes serious harm to public health. Responding to the announcement of the Ministry of Health, Nagawa protester Jamrotha said that the protesters have not yet decided on whether to go and get a COVID-19 test, as they have to discuss together as a group first, because the protesters do not trust the ministry measure and believe that this could be just an excuse by the authority to disperse the protesters. Jamrotha was quoted saying, "We see that our gathering at the strike site for the past 48 to 49 days has got authority of the Ministry of Labor coming to break our advocacy demands. So we do not have confidence in the order for COVID-19 tests. We do not have confidence in whether the tests will be carried out in a transparent and fair process for us strikers." The protester added that the pregnant woman who was found positive with the Omicron variant had not been involved in the strike for a long time. Sraipor Kong, EAC News.
Cambodia has reported 66 new COVID-19 cases, which includes 2 that are imported. There have been 98 patient recoveries and once again, 0 deaths. The kingdom recorded 64 new community and 2 new imported cases of the new variant. This means that Cambodia has now recorded 1,109 cases of Omicron, 503 imported, and 606 community cases. The kingdom's COVID-19 case tally has now climbed to 121,550. The death toll stands at 3,015. The number of patients treated successfully since the pandemic reached Cambodia is 117,918, and the tally for imported cases has climbed to 20,360. Healthcare workers are currently treating a total of 694 patients. And now for a look at news making international headlines this Friday, 4th February.
26 people have died after a high-tension power cable snapped and fell on houses and a market on the outskirts of the capital Kinshasa on Wednesday, February 2nd, local authorities have confirmed. The victims include 24 women and 2 men, and another 2 people were seriously injured. A statement from the National Electric Company has said the line fell during heavy rain on Wednesday morning. The company has offered its condolences to the families. Women and men lost their lives by electrocution this morning in a terrible accident at the Matadi Kibala market following a severing of phase conductors caused by bad weather. The government had already taken steps to relocate the market following a January 7 cabinet meeting, where President Felix Tshisekedi has said its location was snarling traffic along the road between Kinshasa and the port city of Matadi.
Russian nuclear-capable aircraft has performed drills over the Atlantic neutral waters on Thursday, February 3. In a video released by the Russian Ministry of Defense, the military aircraft has performed air refueling and conducted training for enemy submarine search. Moscow's military moves are being closely watched by the West as the build-up of Russian troops near the Ukrainian border has sparked fears of an invasion. Russia has also moved around 30,000 of troops and military hardware to Belarus, which also borders Ukraine, for the February 10 to 20 joint drills, saying it will withdraw them afterwards. Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu has arrived in Belarus on Thursday to inspect Russian and Belarusian troops' preparations for joint drills this month, and will also meet Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko. Moscow has denied its plans to attack Ukraine, while also demanding guarantees from the United States and NATO that Kiev would not be allowed to join the military alliance.
Emergency workers on Thursday, February 3rd, were shifting through the rubble of building where the US has said the Islamic State leader Abdul Ibrahim Ali Hashami and al-Qushayri blew himself up during an overnight military raid. US forces were closed in on Qushayri and northwestern Syria, where he triggered a blast that also killed members of his own family, including children, the US administration has confirmed. Footage from the inside of the 3-story building showed blood-stained rooms that were damaged in the raid of the explosion, which US officials have said was so big it hurled bodies outside and into the surrounding streets and the town of Atama. 10 people, including children, were evacuated from the raid area, the Pentagon has said. The Qushayri-led Islamic State since the death in 2019 of the founder Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, who was also killed when he detonated explosives during the raid by the US commandos.
The outbreak of coronavirus disease, or COVID-19, was first reported from Wuhan, China on 31st December 2019. The COVID-19 pandemic has led to an increased demand for single-use plastic that intensifies pressure on an already out-of-control global plastic waste problem. While it is suspected to be large, the magnitude and fate of this pandemic-associated mismanaged plastic waste are still unknown.
Discarded syringes, used test kits, and old vaccine bottles from the COVID-19 pandemic have piled up to create tens of thousands of tons of medical waste, threatening human health and the environment, a World Health Organization report has said on Tuesday. The recent COVID-19 pandemic has led to an increased demand for single-use plastic, intensifying pressure on this already out-of-control problem. This work shows that more than 8 million tons of pandemic-associated plastic waste have been generated globally, with more than 25,000 tons entering the global ocean. Most of the plastic is from medical waste generated by hospitals that dwarfs the contribution from personal protection equipment. This poses a long-lasting problem for the ocean environment and is mainly accumulated on beaches and coastal sediments. The material, a portion of which could be infectious since coronavirus can survive on surfaces, potentially exposes health workers to burns, needle stick injuries, and disease-causing germs, the report has also said. Communities close to poorly managed landfills can also be affected through contaminated air from burning waste, poor water quality, or disease-carrying pests, it has added.
One of the really important findings is that we found that COVID-19 has increased healthcare waste loads in facilities to up to 10 times current volumes. And if you consider that 2 in 3 healthcare facilities in the least developed countries didn't have systems to segregate or safely treat waste before the pandemic, you can just imagine how much burden this extra waste load has put on healthcare workers, on surrounding communities, especially where waste is burned with the release of dachshunds and furans. In terms of volume of waste, we actually found that gloves were a bigger volume than masks, which is rather interesting given that gloves are, for the most part, a non-essential PPE for COVID. So that is an obvious area where we could reduce waste. Overall, the vaccine waste is now taking over PPE waste in terms of volumes, just because there's so many vaccinations happening, which is a good thing. So we're not obviously recommending that we reduce vaccinations or reduce the essential PPE. But in terms of the risk of waste in COVID, it's quite low from what we know about the virus and its survival in the environment. It's really other risks in the healthcare waste, especially when waste is not segregated. Typically about 80% of waste is non-infectious, but if you're not segregating, you potentially are contaminating all your waste.
The report calls for reform and investment, including through the reduction in the use of packaging that has caused a rush for plastic and the use of protective gear made from reusable and recyclable materials. It estimates that some 87,000 tons of personal protective equipment, or PPE, or the equivalent of the weight of several hundreds blue whales, has been ordered via a United Nations portal up until November 2021, most of which is thought to have ended up as waste. The report also mentions some 140 million test kits with the potential to generate 2,600 tons of mostly plastic trash and enough chemical waste to fill 1/3 of an Olympic swimming pool. In addition, it estimates that some 8 billion vaccine doses administered globally have produced an additional 144,000 tons of waste in the form of glass vials, syringes, needles, and safety boxes.
After the break, a look at all the latest sports news.
If it's happening and you need to know about it, you'll get it all right here. EAC News brings you updates and breaking news in English across all of our platforms and channels. The EAC News app, YouTube, Facebook, Telegram, Twitter, and our website www.eacnews.asia. Join me and the rest of the EAC News team every day on your favorite channels. EAC News, Cambodia made clear.
ើលោកអ្នកចិត្តរៀបអាពាហ៍ពិពាហ៍មែនទេហើយពិបាករកក្រុមហ៊ុនថតវីដេអូផ្សាយផ្ទាល់ដែលមានគុណភាពមែនទេអស់កង្វល់រ៉ាទីកាជាក្រុមហ៊ុនទទួលស្គាល់លំដាប់អន្តរជាតិលើសេវាកម្មថតផ្សាយផ្ទាល់គ្រប់កម្មវិធីកម្រិត 4K ដំបូងបង្អស់នៅកម្ពុជារ៉ាទីកាប្រើប្រាស់ឧបករណ៍ទំនើបម៉ាកល្បីធានាគុណភាពការផលិតតាមបច្ចេកវិទ្យាទាន់សម័យរ៉ាទីកានឹងជួយធ្វើឲ្យកម្មវិធីលោកអ្នកកាន់តែមានភាពអស្ចារ្យលោកអ្នកនឹងបានឃើញរាល់សកម្មភាពក្នុងពិធីទៅលើកញ្ចក់ទូរទស្សន៍ទំហំធំកម្រិត 4K និងការបញ្ចាំងលើផ្ទាំងក្រណាត់សព្រមទាំង LED ដែលមានរូបភាពច្បាស់ត្រជាក់ភ្នែកសូមអញ្ជើញកក់ពីឥឡូវនេះតាមរយៈលេខទូរស័ព្ទ012 823 848 017 838 889និង016 823 848រ៉ាហ្វីកាទំនុកចិត្តការទទួលខុសត្រូវនិងគុណភាពខ្ពស់
something, you about to see something. It's coming, we're unstoppable now. Ain't nothing gonna take us down, we're unstoppable now. Fade to black, take a bow, yeah. We're unstoppable now.
Bartenders and waitering staff are made to wear full hazmat suits in a restaurant at a ski resort in Zhangjiakou.
A bartender in the Chinese ski resort of Zhangjiakou wears a blue and white hazmat suit as he pours a cocktail, before passing the drink to a similarly attired waiter who shuffles across the room in blue plastic booties to deliver the drink. The bar guests at Nanshanli Condoro on Wednesday evening, most of them Olympic-related personnel and journalists, could see only a sliver of their servers' faces behind white masks and giant plastic face shields. A giant closed loop entirely separates the thousands of international athletes, officials, and journalists arriving for the start of the game on Friday from the general public. The scene, which some participants have likened to dystopian fiction, is playing out around Olympic venues in the capital of Zhangjiakou in neighboring Hebei provinces as Chinese officials try to minimize the chance of Beijing Winter Games sparking a fresh coronavirus outbreak. A room service order of a club sandwich and fries came wrapped in plastic and delivered by a worker, again in full PPE. Hallways and lobbies of venues and hotels are constantly sprayed with disinfectant, giving the air a distinct smell of Lysol. Most days at the media center, workers in PPE emblazoned with colorful Olympic rings spray down floors and a robot sprays disinfectant into the air. The closed loop will allow the athletes, coaches, and other officials to shuttle between accommodation and Olympic venues on official transport, but they are not allowed out to move freely in public. Everyone in the closed loop, which includes the 4,500 athletes who have arrived so far for the February 4 to 20 games and 20,000 local volunteers, are subjected to daily PCR tests. Officials conducted 67,137 tests on Wednesday. Olympic organizers said on Wednesday they had recorded 32 COVID-19 cases in the previous 24 hours, 15 of them new airport arrivals. Brian McCloskey, chair of the Beijing 2022 medical expert panel, said he expected the daily number to drop once the number of participants arriving begins to decrease.
谢谢，拜拜，新年快乐，谢谢你。
The Duchess of Cambridge joined England rugby players for a training session on Wednesday, 2nd of February, as she became patron of the Rugby Football League and the Rugby Football Union.
Kate Middleton was seen smiling and laughing as she practiced throwing and kicking the ball with the members of the England women's rugby team. She was also lifted for a line-out and crouched for a scrum. Kate was given the patronage by the Queen Elizabeth II to take over the role from her brother-in-law, Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex. The training of London's Twickenham Stadium came days ahead of the Six Nations campaign that starts this weekend. The Men's, Women's Wheelchair and Physical Disability Rugby League World Cups will be hosted in England in autumn 2022. Since its founding in 1895, the Rugby Football League has been a national governing body for the Rugby League in the UK. Since its founding in 1895, the Rugby Football League has been the national governing body for the Rugby League in the UK. The Rugby Football Union is the national governing body for the grassroots and elite rugby union in England and is one of the largest sports organisations in the country with 1,900 member clubs.
From the deserts of Saudi Arabia to the slopes of the Beijing Winter Games, skier Faik Abdi will be the first to represent the kingdom in alpine skiing races at the Winter Olympics in China.
Abdi has mainly been practicing in Utah since moving to the US in 2012, and has said that one of his main challenges was not being able to practice in his home country. Participating in the first race in Sweden, Abdi competed against athletes from Australia, New Zealand, South Korea, Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Finland, Italy, France, Switzerland, and Austria. He then went on to Montenegro, where he accumulated enough points to qualify for the Winter Olympics.
It's a pleasure to be leading this team to the first Olympic Winter Games. And since we started, we always believe in this team because the athletes, they have really big commitment. They have a really good attitude. They've been working really hard, and we all believe in this qualification.
We did it because the guys showed a really good attitude and commitment to this project, and that passion brought them to this such event, Sands added. The giant slalom has attracted competitors from countries with no medals winning records in the sport, including Abdi, a violinist, Vanessa May, who competed for Thailand at the 2014 Winter Olympics. The Winter Games have brought all different kinds of competitors from remote places around the world that have not seen snow to allow people to follow their dreams to compete in an Olympics.
After a break, a look at all the latest sports news. And finally, the beer called Line is the result of a tie-up between a firm that wants to popularize the algae as a dietary supplement and a nearby craft brewery that was looking for a way to make its beverages more distinctive. As a result, a blue beer is out of the ordinary. Line beer's blue tint comes from spirulina, an algae that is grown in basins by a company called Etica Spirulina in northern France. The component of the spirulina that gives the blue color, called physocyanin, is then added to the beer during the brewing process. Xavier Delanoy, whose farm provides the spirulina, has said after several test batches that the brewery found a blend that appealed to customers. He said 1,500 bottles of the blue beer were sold between October and December last year, and the brewery is now preparing to ramp up production to meet demand. That's really what interests us, to try to democratize this so that it not only concerns particular types of people, said Delanoy. We thought that one great way to democratize a product in northern France is to make beer. Tasting a freshly produced bottle of the beer, an employee of Hoppy Urban Brew who makes the drink, Mathilde Van Mansart, described it as a hoppy, light, and with fruity notes, while the only evidence of the added algae was the distinctive color. The challenge for the producers rests in achieving a blue hue, since many brewers who have tried to use spirulina in beer production have ended up with a green color due to the naturally yellowish tint of beer, brewery worker Alexis Cardot has said. Blue beer is out of the ordinary. We had to encourage people to have a taste and look beyond the appearance, Cardot added. The brewery can bottle and package around 500 liters of beer in one day. Since the last batch sold out in December, a growing demand has led the brewery to find time to make more, employee Sebastian Verbeek has said, adding that the enthusiasm around the product is encouraging as it continues to get an enormous amount of interest and curiosity from the public. Thank you for watching the Daily Roundup on EAC News Channel. For more breaking news and updates, you can check out our website, eacnews.asia, or search EAC News on Telegram or at your favorite app store. More from the EAC News team tomorrow night at 8 p.m. We will see you then.